it all comes down to this. What did TV have to offer us in the times of Corona? Here is my best and worst of TV 2020. Hey everybody, Dan here, and this is Dan Reviews It, looking at TV. We've had 49, I think, weekly TV wrap-up shows, and threw in a couple of extras because we had so many streamers debuting in 2020. I did a HBO Max, Is It Worth It? I did a Peacock, Is It Worth It? I did a Quibi, Is It Worth It? Remember Quibi, everybody? That's already gone. That was a bust like no other the TV has seen in quite a while. But it all happened in 2020, and obviously we didn't get a lot of our network debuts this year. Many of those are being shuffled to 2021. In fact, a couple of them have already premiered this week, which I'll be reviewing probably sometime in the next few days, I guess. But streamers, man, Netflix and a lot of the streamers have just been pushing out content galore throughout the whole year, proving that they really kind of will put things aside for 6, 9, 12 months before releasing it. Whereas the networks, I think are more of a little bit timely and will only record things maybe 4 or 5 weeks out. Which is kind of how network television has always been, but of course streamers changing the game again, and that will be reflected in the best of the year because there really wasn't many new TV offerings on the broadcast network. So with that in mind, we're going to get started here. I reviewed 263 individual shows in 2020, and here is the best of them and a little bit of the worst of them too. And that doesn't include things like my weekly reviews of the Conners. That doesn't include my Masked Singer stuff. No, that is just strictly the television shows that debuted in 2020. That's how many shows are out there, and you figure there's already 200 or 300 shows that already existed before 2020 that are still on. It's pretty wild. There's 5, 6, maybe even 700 shows at any given time, and mostly I do scripted too. There's not too many reality shows on my list from what I review throughout the year. If you throw in reality shows, man, that's probably another 100, right? So my lists are going to reflect shows that debuted in 2020 because that is what I review on my weekly shows. Things like Better Call Saul and This Is Us and The Good Fight, shows that I love and I enjoy watching. I watch a ton of shows continually, but I'm also not quite caught up on those because I've been reviewing all these new shows. So there won't be any of those types of shows. Brooklyn Nine-Nine I love. There won't be any of those shows on my lists here. These are just the brand new shows that debuted in 2020, and some of them are miniseries. Some of them will not be returning, but nonetheless, they debuted in 2020, and so they're good enough for the list. So first, we have a few superlatives before we get to the top 20. It was, of course, the year of the Corona. So I want to give a shout out to a few networks and shows that really were putting through that extra effort to create new content in 2020 that actually was good. There were a handful of missteps as well in that department, but number 3, the Celebrity Show Off on TBS. This was celebrities from their homes making original content, and then people vote on their favorites to move forward. And maybe they didn't get the best A-listers out there, of course. It was like Kevin Smith and Rumor Willis and Jason Mraz and stuff, but they all created very interesting content, and they were given kind of free rein to do whatever they wanted. So I thought that was clever. Number 2, All Rise virtual episode on CBS. This was created as the season finale of All Rise, and of course, them, like a lot of other shows, got shut down for their last couple of episodes for the season. So they decided, well, let's make an episode where we have to do a court case virtually because that's how the courts maybe are going to be going for a little while. And I thought that was well done. Number 1, Connecting on NBC. This was a comedy show, sitcom, that was recorded pretty much virtually, and it apparently didn't do very well for the network, because I think they only ran 4 episodes or something, and then the rest of them went on to Hulu. But I think for the constraints of coronavirus, I think they did a fine job in giving us some sort of comedic content to look for. And it was definitely like a dramedy. I mean, there was a lot of drama involved too, but I laughed as well. So good job for those shows for being great Corona programming in 2020. Next up, the non-scripted shows. Best non-scripted of the year. Now, I don't really count documentaries in that, because those would be more in my regular top 20 list. But this is non-scripted, would be like game shows, contest shows, reality shows, anything like that. So number 3, The Big Fib on Disney Plus. Basically a to tell the truth kind of lean, but for kids. Yvette Nicole Brown is the host. A lot of fun. Number 2, Lego Masters on Fox. That was a lot of fun. It's a Lego building competition with Will Arnett as the host, and just the things that people are building, just fantastic. Love the Lego Masters. And then number 1, a Netflix series called Love on the Spectrum. I don't know if this is an ongoing series or if this is just sort of a one-and-done mini-series, but very touching. Sort of taking a look. It's sort of a dating show, but a couple of the couples were already together. It basically just takes a look at a variety of different relationships, some that had already started and some that were just beginning. The key component is that at least one of each of the couples is on the autism spectrum somewhere, and very respectful, and really just a heartwarming show. All right, then we've got reboots. Oh, there's always reboots going on. So I've picked the 3 best there. Number 3, The Weakest Link on NBC. Jane Lynch, great host. The first week, which is when I reviewed it, I was like, teetering a little bit. Wasn't sure if she quite fit the mold of the sort of snarky, but gruff person. She had almost too much personality. But I watched actually all the episodes of Weakest Link. I'm a game show junkie, so no surprise there. But she really is a great host. Of course, we knew that from her other show, but she's a great host for Weakest Link, and she fit right in. And I've always just loved this show, the fast-paced nature of the trivia questions. So that's number 3. Number 2, already canceled, but that's all right. Freeform. Party of Five, they rebooted that with a Mexican lean to it. People looking for, to get legalized. The dad gets taken from them by ICE in the very first episode, so then the kids have to suffer on without them, while still, trying to figure out a way to maybe bring him back into the country legally. Unfortunately, that is canceled, but the first and now only season was pretty good. So Party 5, number 2. Number 1, Peacock, Saved by the Bell. Believe it or not, I was not a fan of this show originally. I just reviewed this a few weeks ago because it just aired over Thanksgiving. But this has taken pretty much everything I didn't really like about the first go-around and is kind of poking fun at it, but also tweaking the things that kind of didn't work for that show to make it more palatable to today's audiences. And I think the cast is great. John Michael Higgins, wonderful character actor. He plays the principal. And, of course, a couple of people from that original series back with us, including Mario Lopez and Mark Paul Gosselaar. So, number 1, reboot. I would have been very shocked at the beginning of the year if you told me that would be on my top for the reboots, but here we are. All right, so let's get now to the big list. Last year, I only had a top 10, but that's because I only did a show from September through December, so really most of it was the best of the fall. But this is the best of all the whole year, so it is a top 20, and we do have a bottom 5 as well to get to. But first, let's talk some of the good stuff. The runners-up, I have 2 runners-up here. Defending Jacob on Apple TV, and I say this is a runner-up because I still have only seen those first 2 episodes, and I think this is one of those shows that sort of lives or dies by how it's executed by the end. I don't know how it ends, so I can't quite put it in my top 20. But those first two episodes were powerhouses, so I definitely want to give it some love. And then another runner-up. This is very sort of surprising for me when I heard about this show. I was like, "Yeah, this sounds kind of dumb," but it's a great family show over on Netflix called Julie and the Phantoms. This is getting a second season. And it's a really heartwarming show. This girl, who's a musician, her mother passes away, and she discovers a few ghosts in her garage from an old band that has also passed away, and so they help her go back into her music career. And it's just a very touching show, and I was surprised by that. So that's a runner-up as well. So let's get into the top 20. Like I said, some of these are going to be just mini-series, one and done, and I'll try to list them if I can remember which ones are, are mini-series and which ones are actual series. And I think a couple of these also have been canceled after one season, so even though they weren't designed to be a miniseries, they sort of are now. And that's where we fall with number 20. This is a show that was designed to be a series, but after one season got canceled, so we only have one season of Away on Netflix. This is the space show with Hilary Swank at the helm. She is going up into space and as well dealing with a lot of family issues here on Earth. And, I thought it was a great high drama, and my guess is it was probably just a little expensive to produce for the returns that they got on it, because people did watch it. I mean, it was in their top 3 or whatever for several weeks. I think critically it did pretty well, but my guess is this might be a little too expensive to continue producing, which is why they dropped it after the one season. But for me, it worked, and that lands at number 20. Number 19, this is a mini-series, and this is I almost didn't put it on because it's more like a 3-hour movie because it's a mini-series, but there's only 3-hour-long episodes. So I don't know what you consider that, but it's not a TV movie. It's a mini-series because it was on 3 separate nights. It's Quiz on AMC. This is all about the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire scandal of the early 2000s, and not here in America, not the Regis version of Millionaire, but over in, I think, the UK, although it might have been Australia now, I can't remember, but Cyan Clifford is one of the leads in that, and she's been in like 3 or 4 shows I've reviewed this year. She pops up everywhere. But, as a game show junkie, obviously this was of high interest to me, but I thought it was executed very, very well. Now, a lot of these shows we're going to talk about, I've only seen, a handful of episodes. The first 2, 3, 4, maybe even. But this one, because there's only 3 episodes, I did watch the whole thing. So know how it wraps up, and I just think they did a great job with it. Moving on, number 18 is Showtime's The Good Lord Bird. This is one that just didn't really seem to interest me. It's it's a Western. Ethan Hawke, I think, can give some great performances, but he also chooses things sometimes I don't really care about. But this was executed marvelously. Of almost every show on this top 20, I think this and maybe 1 or 2 others are the most filmed like a movie. This didn't have any traces of, this is just a TV show. No, Showtime really went all out on this. It is shot like a movie. It is acted like a movie. It's paced like a movie. And it is a wonderful show. The Good Lord Bird, number 18. Number 17, this was on AMC, a very interesting one that I kind of forgot about because it was really early in the year, but as I was going through all of my grades for the year, I was like, oh yeah, that show was solid. It's Dispatches from Elsewhere with Jason Segel. It's his first thing in many years. He hasn't done a movie in a long time. And of course, I just wrapped up watching all the Freaks and Geeks episodes for my Freaks and Geeks reviews here on the channel. So I've been seeing young little Jason Segel. He was probably 17 or 18, I think, when Freaks and Geeks was on. And now, 20 years later, we see the mature Jason Segel. And this is a very interesting, mystery drama. These people all sort of get these secret messages, and they meet up and try and figure out what's going on. I think this is getting a season 2. I'm not positive on that, but I do believe this was not a miniseries, that it was a series, and it, I think, got renewed for season 2. So Dispatches from Everywhere. Number 16 is my only broadcast network show on the whole list. And now, again, that's not as much a slight on broadcast networks as it is a fact that they just haven't been able to put out much content this year because of Corona. I'd say of all the 263 shows that I reviewed, probably 10%, maybe even less, came from broadcast networks. You had Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I considered, because I'm starting to go through that first season, and it's pretty solid, but not quite to the level of our top 20 yet. So my one broadcast show is Big Sky on ABC. I think we only had 4 or 5 episodes here before the break, and we'll get more starting in 2021 here, probably coming up next week or the week after. I think ABC is doing all of their shows starting in mid-January here, but this is really, I mean, I would say of jaw-dropping final clips from the pilot episode, Big Sky definitely ranks up there for me. I mean, I was like, oh my god, like, this is crazy. The concept on the whole, I don't know. It's maybe a little bit basic, sort of, bounty hunters looking for, not maybe bounty hunters, but, people looking for missing girls, throughout the sort of backwoods, I guess, in Montana. But David E. Kelly is at the helm, which means it's automatically going to be sort of raised to a higher level because he always puts a great stamp on everything. So Big Sky's my number 16. Number 15, my first out-and-out comedy that we've had so far, and this is over on Apple TV, which surprisingly has a lot of shows in my top 20. This is Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet. It comes to us from a lot of the Always Sunny people, and in fact, Mac from Always Sunny is the star of this show. I'm trying to think of his real name, Rob McElhenney. And it's got a lot of the same sort of vibe that Always Sunny does in terms of its humor, but it's a little more grounded in the real world, sort of like maybe all of their other offshoots. Like AP Bio, I feel like is sort of also, it's silly and it's very sort of broad and over the top, but there's, I don't know, maybe AP Bio is sort of the mix between the two. This is definitely a little more real world, I guess, than all of that. But I think it's great ensemble cast, maybe the greatest ensemble comedy cast of the year, and I'm looking forward to season 2, which should be premiering in pretty early 2021, because I think they were already working on it when Corona hit. So we should see some of that. Number 14 over on Hulu. This is called Love, Victor. Now, maybe I'm a little biased as a gay man and a person who absolutely loved the movie Love, Simon. But still, I think I could have easily put it in the top 10, but I think number 14 is probably a good placement for this. This is basically not even an offshoot of Love, Simon. It's basically a sequel, but a different person at the helm, because we do see the Simon character in this show, or maybe we don't see him, but we have emails and stuff going back and forth. His presence is in the show, but it's actually Victor that is having the crisis this time in high school, and it has a lot of the same feel as the movie, which is great. Good parents as well, just like Simon's. So all of those vibes are still here, and so that is my number 14. Number 13, we go to Netflix. A lot of Netflix shows on the top 20. I think they probably have released more shows than any other network or streamer this year, so makes sense. But number 13 is The Babysitter's Club. This was another surprise for me, much in the vein of Saved by the Bell. By the time this hit, when I was a kid, I was in high school. I was just like, I don't really care about this. I didn't read the books. I knew, friends of mine that did, but it wasn't anything that was in my wheelhouse. But this is another great family show from Netflix, just like Julie and the Phantoms, but maybe a little more well done. It's, very female-centric, but I think boys can enjoy it as well, because I think the characters are very well written, and it's not all about let's be girls and have girl power, even though they do. It's more just about friendship and camaraderie and great plot lines as well. So I really enjoyed number 13. 12 is on Netflix as well. Feel Good. This is sort of the opposite of Babysitter's Club. You don't want to let your kids watch this. some drama here with addiction and stuff, but a lot of comedy too. A stand-up comedian sort of looking for love here as somebody who suffers from mental illness and stuff. Really, really interesting and a great new cast. I mean, Lisa Kudrow's in this, but most of the people I did not recognize, and that's actually many of the shows in my top 20. I will find this that I don't recognize a lot of the actors. The ones so far, I guess I have. Well, except for Love, Victor, and Babysitter's Club, I didn't really either. But a lot of the ones coming up are from, maybe they're produced by people I know, but starring a lot of people that are fairly new to me. So, all right, that's number 12. Number 11 on Freeform. Everything's going to be okay. Here's one where, I didn't know anybody in this cast, but a great, great new sort of comedian. He had another show that I didn't watch. I don't know if it even aired in America, but I forget his name, to be honest, unfortunately. But he sort of heads this up and was the creator of it. And this father is dying, and so he brings his kids together, and the son has been estranged for a few years because he's sort of, a screw up and everything. And the dad wants to put him in charge of the girls, and he doesn't know how to do that. He's like, I'm not feeling this. Very, very touching, but very funny in parts as well. Always the mark of a good show, I think, and that's number 11. All right, before we get to the top 10, I guess let's do the bottom 5, shall we? So these are the worst shows that we've seen in 2020. This list was very easy to make because I had 4 Fs. So there's your top 4, and then I had to sift through the many Ds to come up with number 5. And boy, we had some rough shows this year. Some of the Ds that didn't make the cut broke on CBS with Polly Perrette. That was a horrible show. And we had a lot of the sort of reality shows, that I reviewed going with the D as well. But my number 5 actually did come out of Corona as well. And it's ABC's Emergency Call. This is a Luke Wilson hosted show, and basically it just is the stories of some 911 dispatchers and everything. But the problem is we didn't hear any of the calls. We didn't see any of the actual footage. We just basically saw stock people in a 911 operating center on the phone. Maybe they showed pictures of like buildings or scenery from the town. Like it was poorly done. I guess I like the effort for giving us new content in Corona, but this was not the one. Number 4, Tiny Pretty Things on Netflix. I just reviewed this like 2 weeks ago. Just horrible. The acting is terrible. It's like really sexed up for no reason. There's like this big death mystery that nobody seems to care about. So just a bad show all around. Number 3, Tyler Perry's Young Dylan. Look, I'm a bit hit or miss on Tyler Perry. I like some of the movies. Some of the stuff is horrible. I actually think he's a pretty good actor. I thought he was great in Gone Girl. But this is among the worst of his offerings, at least lately. It's a kid's show because, of course, it is on Nickelodeon, so you already knew that. But this one is like the lead character, this young Dylan, is just a jerk off. You want to just smack him around. He is an awful mentor and role model for any kids watching this show. And maybe the worst offense of all, it just wasn't funny in the least. Number 2, Celebrity Watch Party on Fox. This came out of Corona as well. And actually, sort of, though, because it's based on a British show called Gogglebox that is very popular over there. And so Fox brought it to America, and the results were just disastrous. It's basically celebrities and their families sitting around watching TV and commenting on it. But the problem is, most of the celebrities weren't funny or compelling or even really interesting. And of course, the bulk of the shows they watched were on Fox. Not the bulk, but like they started off with The Masked Singer, and it's like, all right, well, I just watched this episode of Masked Singer. I don't need to see Ozzy Osbourne or, the guy from Shark Tank commenting on it. So, horrible show. But the worst offender of all, The Goop Lab on Netflix. And the reason this is the worst of the year is because not only is it not really a well-done show, but it's the only one on my list that's actually, I think, dangerous, because it presents itself as, a scientific show, and this is going to be, data that we've done and da-da-da-da-da, but none of it really is. It's all sort of speculation or alternative types of medicines, but they're bringing it as factual, like, yes, this is going to do this. And look, I like Gwyneth Paltrow, but the whole Goop line of things, I think is ridiculous. It's, first of all, way too high priced, but regardless of that, I think this show is actually a little bit dangerous for all of them. So that's an F for me for sure. So let's go back to the good stuff and wrap it with our top 10 best TV of 2020. Number 10, Apple TV Plus again, and it's a cartoon. I think no, I have one other animated show, but okay, they're both on Apple TV. Actually, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I think Apple TV is the best streaming home for kids and family entertainment. I really do. Central Park is the name of the show, and it's a musical animated series. It's got some great voices in it, and it's from the people that bring us Bob's Burgers. And so, right away you're like, okay, well, that's probably going to be good, right? And like Bob's Burgers, it has, sometimes male actors doing female voices, including, I think Daveed Diggs is one of them. So that's always fun. Now, we will have a slight change in voice in season 2 because Kristen Bell was voicing a mixed race character, and she's stepped down from that to make room for a mixed race actor. And I think there might be one other actress in here that was the same, but who else is in this? Titus Burgess is in this. There's a lot of really great people, and it's sort of got that Bob's Burgers vibe of sort of the downtrodden father, and the odd family that he has to deal with. But the music in here is great, so that is definitely recommended. Number 9, Never Have I Ever on Netflix. This is coming back for season 2. Mindy Kaling is the producer, but like a lot of these shows, I don't know really any of the actors. It's a great coming-of-age comedy show. The lead actor is just fantastic in it. And you know what? I couldn't think of the name of the guy from the other show, but I want to tell you the name of this girl because I think she's an up-and-comer, and it's a very hard name to pronounce, so I certainly don't want to guess on it, but it's Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, I think, is how you would say it. And the only person I know in the series is John McEnroe. He voices the narrator, but it takes place, back in, I guess, the 90s maybe. It's sort of, in a roundabout way, Mindy Kaling's, own kind of coming up story, but the acting's great, the comedy's great, so that is number 9. Number 8 on Netflix as well. This is a miniseries, so we won't be seeing this in 2021, but it was up for, I think, 7 or 8 Emmys or something. It won an Emmy for Best Directing of a miniseries or television movie, and that is Unorthodox. This was a really, really interesting show, a look into, something that I personally don't really know all that much about, the sort of Hasidic Jewish life, and I thought it was really well done, very interesting, and I would think it's my only show on the list to be primarily not in English. The main language actually is Yiddish for this show, so I've reviewed a few shows in foreign languages this year, but this by far would be the best. Number 7 is over on Apple TV. Again, another animated show. This is more for younger kids than Central Park will be. Central Park is more, I think family-based, or maybe, for older kids at least. But this one, I think, is for younger kids, but I got a lot out of it as well. It's about this panda called Stillwater. It's based on a book, and, it's more about the art of being Zen and sort of, looking at things in a different light, and what you can do when you get angry, and a lot of things that I think were sort of Mr. Rogers templates as well, just maybe not as clear cut as okay, this is a Zen panda. No, it was a little more broad, I think, on Mr. Rogers and more specific here, but I think a lot of the same principles apply. This is a very educational and cute show. Number 6 is going to be Devs, and this is FX on Hulu, which means I still don't quite know what that means. I think it means it airs on Hulu, but it's under the FX banner. It's FX produced. And I guess if they want to run it on FX, they can. Um, but whatever. Either way, number 6 and 5 actually are both FX on Hulu. So number 6 is Devs, and this was one of the most interesting shows of the year. There was a lot of like new kind of sci-fi esque shows on this year, and a lot of them were very good. But in terms of like hard sci-fi, I would say this is the best of them. Nick Offerman is in this, as well as again like a whole list of like people that I don't really know, like who else stars in this? Jin Ha, Sanyaya Mizuno, Kaylee Spaney. Oh, Zach Grenier. Okay, I know him from a couple of other shows, but Nick Offerman really is the main guy I think that you would know. But it's so interesting, and this is getting a second season, I believe. This one did not get nominated for any Emmys, which I was actually kind of surprised by. I thought maybe at least some of the technical Emmys, but just the cinematography is great here, and a killer soundtrack as well. All right, so number 5, Mrs. America on FX on Hulu. This got a ton of Emmy love, mostly for the acting. This was just a who's who of female actresses today, and this is about sort of the life of a lot of these sort of women's rights people, and all of that from way back in the day. Gloria Steinem. I know Chisholm. What's her name? I forget. Shirley Chisholm was Uzu Adoba. Tracy Ullman was here as Betty Friedan. So a lot of like the real feminist movement from, I guess it took place in the 60s maybe, but I mean really who's cast of every hot female actress working today. Elizabeth Banks was in it, and Kate Blanchett and Rose Byrne. I mean, just really very star-studded. So love that everything came together. Number 4, Snowpiercer on TNT. I don't generally watch anything on TNT. I feel like it's mostly basketball games. But I loved the Snowpiercer movie. Chris Evans starred in that several years ago, and it sort of brings that concept to the television series. But I think it's actually a sequel. I don't think it's a remake, or at least it's in the same universe. I don't remember, because it aired very early in the year. In fact, so early in the year, we're going to have season 2 starting in about 2 weeks on TNT. So look for that if you enjoyed the first season of Snowpiercer. But, look, Daveed Diggs, I have followed everything he's done really since, believe it or not Hamilton, because I didn't see him in Hamilton until it was on Disney Plus this year. And I guess if that counts as TV, that would certainly be among the best of TV this year. But I count that as a movie. But either way, I first saw him in Wonder as the teacher, and I was like, "Who is this guy? He's like really cool." And then every single project he has done since has been like an A or an A plus for me. He did the movie Blind Spotting, which was an A plus for me. He did last year's number 1 show for me on the 2019 list, Undone, and now he's one of the stars of the Snowpiercer. So another great feather in his cap. I think he just picks really interesting projects, and Snowpiercer is no exception. Great concept that they kind of took from the movie and made it into a long form TV series, but it's got all the same elements of that movie. A lot like Love, Victor, really. It feels very much like the movie, just in a longer form. Number 3, HBO's Lovecraft Country. Boy, was this interesting. And this, like I said, Devs is the hardest sci-fi in the top 20, but there's been a lot of interesting, like, sort of, Snowpiercer, you could even maybe say is a sci-fi a little bit. Lovecraft Country has sci-fi elements for sure, but I think more than that even, it is a race drama, in the vein of a lot of these things that HBO has been doing lately, with great results, including Watchmen, which I think I ranked as like number 9 on my top 10 last year, but that was only after watching 1 episode. Now that I've watched the full series of Watchmen, I would say it was easily probably in the top 3 of last year. But in any event, yeah, Lovecraft Country sort of bites off of that a little bit with the themes of like race relations, and it takes place kind of like the Watchmen in a decade gone by. I think it takes place in the 50s, I want to say. And obviously, I'm not a huge reader, so I'm not super familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, but I know he's one of the masters of the genre, so obviously there is a lot of, sci-fi elements in here, and a little bit of horror and stuff as well. Number two, this is one actually, so these last seven or so I've given A's to. This one actually got an A minus on my original review, but upon reflection, I think this is easily one of the greatest shows of the year, and I think this is one that's going to really stick around for years to come and become probably one of my favorite shows of the decade, as long as they can keep this momentum going, and that is Apple TV Plus's Ted Lasso. Jason Sudeikis, I liked his stuff on SNL. I like some of his movies, but he's generally a pretty similar character throughout, all of those things. And here, I can't say he plays a completely separate character, but he, because of the pentameter is fairly the same and stuff. But this character is a ray of light in all of this sort of negativity around him. And I don't think necessarily he's naive. I think he's just optimistic. I think he's positive. And it eventually sort of goes out to everybody around him that's trying to bring him down. I think this is the show that we needed in 2020. I think this is the positivity that we need in 2020. And it's really, really damn funny, too. So Ted Lasso makes my number two. Number one should be no surprise if you've been following my channel, because not only did I give it a very, very high mark when I reviewed the first two episodes on my weekly show, but my buddy Tim and I did a whole hour-long video of the whole series in which we, sang its praises and gave it A pluses and didn't really find much fault with it. So that is The Queen's Gambit. This show is brilliant. It will be up for all of the Emmys and the Golden Globes that it's eligible for in the next year. I know it. I mean, it's just so good on every level. The acting, the attention to detail for the time period, and then the story. It's about chess, and apparently this was a big risk for Netflix, because this went to so many different places and everybody passed, and they said nobody's going to watch a show about chess. What are you doing? It's based on this book from 20, 30 years ago. Who cares? And Netflix ran with it. And look, it's partially Netflix, I would say, without a doubt, bringing their sort of stamp to it and letting their creators do what they want to do. But I think more than anything, it is Anya Taylor-Joy, the star of this show, that really brings everything to a head. She is brilliant here. I think people have maybe watched her in some other things and been like, oh, she's interesting. Certainly a great movie this year was Emma. The old, I don't know, what is that, Jane Austen maybe or something, but she was great in that. She's popped up here and there, but this will be, I think, the touchstone for when Anya Taylor-Joy became a superstar. It's with The Queen's Gambit. And if you want to really know all of what I thought about Queen's Gambit, you can check out that hour-long video that Tim and I did. But it's easily the number one show of 2020. It is a mini-series, so we won't be getting it anymore, although I guess in some circles they're talking about maybe doing some sort of sequel for the character. I personally, I don't know. Tim and I talked about that. I can see a couple different ways of going about it, but I don't really want them to do it. I really would prefer if it just stayed as a miniseries. So there you have it. A mix of things. So, I mean, if you're talking miniseries only, it's going to be Queen's Gambit. Mrs. America would be number 2, I guess, and Unorthodox would be number 3. And if you're talking, full series, Ted Lasso, I guess would be my number 1 of 2020 then. But no regrets there on that list. It took me a little while to make it, sort of cycling through everything going on. And I expect to see some great things from network television in 2021. I still believe in network television. Like I said, I still watch a lot of the shows on it. I love This Is Us. But, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist is great. The Connors, I think, is still plugging along, still doing very well. I am a believer in network television. I think 2020, they sort of got the shaft a little bit with the ability to, without the ability to bring us a lot of new content. So, streamers for the win there. But streamers also sort of have no boundaries. You can do whatever they like. So that usually works in their favor as well. But either way, thank you for watching. We'll have a bunch of new shows. Actually, I think I'm going to do my first two TV news and review shows within the next 7 to 10 days. I think I'm going to kind of bust them out because one is going to be solely about all the new game shows and contests that are on, because we've got the new Name That Tune on Fox, and you've got Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, and you've got the return of The Chase on ABC, which is a revival from a few years ago. So there's a lot of new game shows out, but then we have a whole list of scripted shows too. Mr. Mayor with Ted Danson, Call Me Kat with Maya Bialik, and a few others. So I think I'm going to separate those into two separate shows to really devote the time to them. But look for those if you're into my TV show reviews. And that's it. It's been a very interesting 2020. If you like 2020 wrap-ups, I will be doing my movie wrap-up probably in about 5 or 6 weeks. I usually do that in mid-February so I can make sure I watch all the movies I want to that I didn't get the chance to in the previous year. So still watching all of those. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.